The Richmond spread was not quite the Humes, a half-acre lot bounded by tall Italian cypresses and anchored by a bulky neo-colonial, its slender pediment on 4 square columns, with broad stone-bordered steps leading to the brightly lit porch. Castor felt like a chauffeur pulling up to the apex of the U-shaped driveway. Mrs. Richmond greeted him. Castor had met her the night of the prom the year before. Like her daughter, she was a tall, solid girl, yet assertively matronly in that estate way. Her strawberry blonde hair rigidly rigged into a naughty bouffant, with curls like machine tool shavings framing her cheeks. She was wrapped in a stylish but boxy dress belted with a big golden buckle. She led Castor into a front parlor of showroom French provincial furniture, including a stuffed chair whose ottoman she perfectly perched upon, knees turned obliquely and ankles crossed, as Castor took the edge of a facing 2-seater. "So you and Beth are the only 2 left?" For a moment, taking her to mean not yet dead, Castor smiled tensely. "I guess so." "Well, that's so nice of you to take Beth out. She's had such a hard week, of course, and all her friends are gone already." "Yeah, it's been sad." Castor wondered if she remembered him, knew that he knew Alan too. "And I'm sure Corman appreciates it. He would have come home. Of course, he has football. He's a walk-on, but it looks like he might get some playing time." Suddenly, Castor's quandary resolved itself. He felt at once deflated and relieved. "He knows all about Corman, Mother." Beth stood in the arched doorway from the vestibule, lightly backlit. She wore pleated white slacks and a pale blue top, a matching chemise draped over her forearm. Her long hair was swept back to a barrette with 2 lazy spirals grazing her clavicles. 16 months earlier, he'd been stunned to see her standing there in a white silk Empire-style gown, tresses tiered atop her head, except for those 2 curls. Alan mutely offered his orchid corsage. Castor swallowed hard. It was unusually warm, and as Castor fired up the Catalina for the 3rd time all summer, he reached down and switched on the air conditioner. "Tell me if it gets..." Still stricken, he settled back and looked at Beth. Her hands folded on the purse on her lap, and the weep he'd been staying rose in his throat. "That was hard, I know." She slid a little toward Castor on the bench seat and put her hand on his. "I know. Let's try." Yeah. As he drove toward Route 19, they chatted about classes, past and future. He mentioned having taken a film history course the previous fall with his roommate, Carrie, who was planning to major in filmmaking. Prattled about his unfocused interest in films outside the Hollywood mainstream. Even hazarded that Alan had steered into the Pitt film series. Beth had not chosen a major, but was leaning toward music and maybe transferring to another school. But her parents strongly advised a more practical path, like marketing. "I get to take an elective in the spring, and there's a film history class. I thought about that, but I don't know. I don't know a lot about film." "Well, maybe that's a good reason." My parents would just be flummoxed. Beth dropped the word a tone as if it denoted a medieval torture. "Maybe that's a good reason, too." "God, yeah, I'm sorry. You know, the business about Corman. I guess you figured they just think of the world of him. His father and my father are partners. Did you know that? So it's kind of a big deal. I think they've always figured that they were going to matchmake us, but Corman was seeing Amy, you know." Castor knew. He wanted to ask Beth what she wanted, but she declared, "Oh, I do not want to talk about Corman tonight. Tell me about this movie. I don't think my French is good enough to follow along, but of course it'll have, what's it called, the translation, subtitles." "It could be dubbed," Castor said, "but that always seems stupid to me." "Like those Japanese monster movies?" "Yeah, right." Laughing loosened them a bit. I saw in the paper the French title is La Nuit Américaine, the American Night. What is that, and what does it have to do with day for night? Well, if you take that film class, you'll learn all about it. How about in the meantime, you just tell me? They mean the same thing. It's a technique for shooting in daytime to make it look like night. You see it in a lot of old movies. I think they just call it American because it comes out of Hollywood. I see. Well, I'm learning a lot already. Beth flashed a canny grin, and Castor understood. She could be as ironic as Alan or anyone. What drew Castor to her, in addition to her wholesome allure, was that she could intend and jest at the same time. And this required more subtlety and sureness of self than mere irony. Castor wondered how often she saw remarks like that glide right past Corman, or for that matter, if they glanced off Alan. They both loved the film, despite the dubbing, and talked enthusiastically about it in the peppermint glare of Isley's in Oakland. Beth put away a staggering banana split, while Castor worked on a Klondike and a Coke. Holding a laugh while she swallowed, Beth leaned forward, daubed some chocolate at the corner of her mouth. What was it the director said? Oh yeah, tell him I speak English, but I don't understand it. I like the line about a movie being like riding a stagecoach. You start out hoping it's okay, but halfway through you just hope to survive. Alphonse was kind of hard to take. Beth set her spoon against the side of the chrome boat, folded her fingers. On the one hand, he's so obsessed with movies, like everyone else, but then his obsession with the script girl, well, it's like, which is it? It seemed like he really only wanted her, I don't know, maybe it was just supposed to be for sex, but it's like she represented some kind of idea the woman a movie actor in a movie about acting in a movie should have, if that makes any sense. He didn't want her for her. They looked at each other, then at the pooling ice cream. Another line I liked, Beth said quietly, was when the assistant said, I'd drop a guy for a film, but I'd never drop a film for a guy. I guess it struck me because, well, I don't have anything to say that about. Do you wish you did? Like music? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, actually. But in the meantime, I guess I would drop a film for a guy. Blood filled Castor's head like a gas. It would be fine hearing that even voice say similarly pregnant things for a lifetime. He grinned goofily, lowered his head, dreaded. Cut to Mary. He knew he should not, but there she was. When he looked up at Beth again, she knew she'd erred, gone too far. She lifted her spoon, stirred some cream. We talked about the other things a lot. I guess I never got around to asking about you and your life at school. Like, you have a girlfriend. Castor wanted to say, yeah, but asked for patience while he sorts things out. But he couldn't. All he could do was nod yes. Finishing, paying, walking to the car, crossing the Mon and coursing the pale amber lights of the Liberty tubes, cruising up into the South Hills, they did a pretty good job of pretending the moment hadn't happened. Talked some more about school and campus friends, promised to write, and all the while, Castor hoped he'd find the courage to tell her he'd drop a film for a girl. When the moment arrived at the apex of the U-shaped drive, the Catalina's cabin and porch glare, Beth forestalled him. As he turned with nothing to say, she slid toward him, took his cheeks in her palms, and kissed him lightly but dearly. I'm really sorry, she said, sliding away. He watched her take the steps. She turned and smiled, and they gathered last sight of each other.